So you guys have read The End of History by Francis Fukuyama, right? I promise this is about my number one song of 2024. The end of history is one of those ideas that when people first hear it, they immediately scoff at it. History didn't end. It kept going. Stuff kept happening. Well, that's not what Francis Fukuyama means. He's referring to an idea first proposed by the philosopher Hegel. See, what Hegel proposed is that history is a dialogue. Stick with me here. Nation A fights Nation B. They have a fight, Nation B wins, and now their ideology is the primary ideology. And then Nation B fights Nation C wins, now Nation C's ideology is the primary ideology. The point being is that different nations all have different ideologies about how the way the world should run, and that eventually, if history plays out long enough, there will be an end to the dialogue, so to speak. A conclusion will be reached, and there will be a dominant ideology that nobody can resist. Karl Marx picks up this idea a little bit later. He basically argues that history ends when we achieve communist utopia. But in order to achieve said communist utopia, we have to look beyond conflict as not just between nations, but between classes. Hence, class warfare. The idea that the proletariat and the bourgeoisie will inevitably come to blows, and one will dominate over the other. And once that has been achieved and communist utopia is abound, history will end. What Francis Fukuyama was proposing in the 80s and 90s was that Marx's conclusion to history was incorrect. Fukuyama was witnessing the end of the Cold War. To him, the collapse of the Soviet Union read as the death knell for communism, and since fascism had fully been defeated back in World War II, it makes sense then to view America as the victor, though he didn't argue that America itself would be the new dominant nation to end history. Rather, he argued that liberal democracy would be what wins the day. Brief note, when I say liberal democracy, you should be thinking of things like Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan. I'm talking about things that are like capitalist economies mixed with democratic elements, that kind of stuff. In short, Fukuyama believed that since America won the Cold War and that there were no more big superpowers left, history concluded. Why was everyone so cynical in the 90s? Like, when you think back to the early 1990s and you think of grunge music, right? You think about a subculture where everybody in America was just so disappointed. My father always put it as the promise from Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit was, well, here we are now. Entertain us. There was nothing left to strive for, it felt like. Per my mother, the 90s felt like it could only get better. Society could only get better from here. There was no more struggle left. And it left a dissatisfied taste in a lot of people's mouths. So disappointed were they by the world that surrounded them that they didn't quite know what to do. And when you have a book coming out in the early 90s declaring that this is the end of history, you kind of start to lose hope in doing anything to make things better. To borrow a point from Ian Danskin's incredible video on Daria, it was as if the baby boomers just wanted to shake Gen X and go, "You don't realize how good you have it." The real tragedy, then, is that the millennials and Gen Z wanted to shake the Gen Xers and go, "You don't realize how good you have it. It will never be this good again." In 1993, Canada's answer to They Might Be Giants, Moxy Fruvous, published this song off of their first album, Stuck in the 90s. Already, this is only 1993, and yet they feel as if they are stuck in a decade they don't want to be a part of. The song describes a disgruntled office worker having a daydream about a better future, one with no more right-wingers and nothing but singers, and then he wakes up to a world where welfare is stupid, homeless are stupid, how it's all about climbing the corporate ladder. I know we often joke about all those movies from the 90s in which Gen X complains about having a steady office job with benefits, but as one of the privileged and lucky individuals who has a white-collar office job with benefits and paid holidays, I can tell you, the doldrums hurt. You can feel your mind stagnate on a slow day in the office, and you wish for a better world. You know about the suffering of all the other places. You know the bad things that are happening. And if you're of a left-leaning mind, you are very aware of your place of privilege, and yet it still sucks. What I get from Stuck in the 90s is this desire to want to do a communist revolution, to refute what Fukuyama says and claim that history is not over, that right-wing liberal democracy is not the answer to the world. We don't want more Pat Buchanan. The real kick to the gut is that the music video uses imagery of the 60s at times. Where did that revolutionary spirit go? Where did that desire to do something more, to be a better nation? If I get this video out in time, it will be New Year's Eve or New Year's Day, and the world is about to get a lot worse. I'm not going to mince words. The world is about to get worse, and we have a lot of work to do. We can be certain Fukuyama was definitely wrong. Fascism and communism are back now more than ever, and unfortunately fascism is winning. But what I want you to remember, what I keep thinking about this song, why it was on loop over and over again for me this year, was because it was a reminder to me. The first reminder is that history did not end in the 90s. So often we, Gen Z, and millennials too, were taught that we solved racism, we ended bigotry, we fixed all of the misogyny in America. Not true. Not true at all. But we thought that. We thought that was the case. Again, we thought that things can only get better. But history is not the steady march of more rights for more people. That oversimplification of Hegel's idea at the beginning is that only better ideologies win. They don't. Sometimes we have to take a step back. Sometimes good ideas lose. And the other thing I want to remind you, that I use this song to remind me of, is that even if we return to those golden years of the 90s, or whatever few years we on the left think were the best America got, is to not be complacent when we get there. The world of the 1990s could have been better, and you have to fight for that. You have to want a better system and a better world, and you have to work for it. Otherwise, all you're left with are white lies, rich guys, hoarding the big prize.
Reluctant to fight, stuck in the 90s again. Reluctant to fight, he's stuck in the 90s again.
Thank you for watching this video. Thank you for making it all the way to the end of the top 100, or even if you just tuned in for this. Means a lot. I have a little epilogue for those of you who are following the Instagram story. Don't worry, I'll save it to my highlights if you want to catch it or if you miss it. But thank you for just watching this video and listening to what I had to say. I think I'm going to keep doing stuff for this YouTube channel, but it's probably going to be after announcement. I think in January I should have a prototype of my book, It's Okay to Like Things, up and ready to read. So we're going to need test readers, and it'll be open to the public to look at, review, and to give me feedback, notes, and hopefully we'll get this thing polished before I try to give it a more mass release. If you stumbled onto this video out of nowhere, you must be really confused. Don't worry, I'll do a more proper explanation of what this is at some point. But for now, oh god, I hate the idea that I have to say this. But if you want to keep updated, subscribe. Ugh, I feel gross. I'm gonna go leave.